Okay, Mary.
Okay. Okay. Oh, second. Welcome, everyone. Still admitting people, but we'll go ahead and get started. And the moderators will be given the instructions after I introduce who is going to be moderating tonight. So tonight we have Kathy Ferguson and Jim Griffin. Kathy is very active in Kanawha County. She's on the Kanawha County Executive Committee. And Mr. James Griffin is very active in the Black Caucus, as well as Kathy. They're both active in the Black Caucus. And he is from Harrison County, and he's on the Harrison County's Executive Committee. I met them both in 2016, and you all will be in very, very, very good hands. So I am now going to turn it over to them.
Okay, thank you very much, Mary. I want to thank everyone for taking the time out on this beautiful Sunday evening to participate in this candidates, meet your candidates session that we're going to have this evening. We have sent out the rules to the two candidates. Just going to review them one time. We're going to have 2 minutes to answer the questions. If there is a rebuttal, I don't think there are going to be very many rebuttals. We'll have a minute to rebut. We're going to try to keep this between an hour and a half. Kathy and I will be alternating questions. We're also going to have an opportunity for the people participating tonight to ask questions. We're asking you to type your questions into the chat. And the last thing that we're going to do tonight, we'll give you an opportunity to ask questions. I'm going to be asking the first question of both candidates. And the first question is going to be, what is your first priority if you are elected as the chairman? And I'm going to go in alphabetical order. P comes before S. So Mike, you'll have the first opportunity to answer that question. What will be your first priority if you're elected chairman?
I'll give the going to be setting the sights on November. It's great to have a long-term plan. We have an election in 5 months. We have great candidates up and down the ballot. We have to make sure that those candidates have all the resources at their disposal so we can pick up seats this year. This year is a unique opportunity where there are no statewide races. It's all going to be about down ballot races. But first, I really wanted to thank you for having me on. I'm glad to be here tonight with the Black. But many of the issues important to everybody here are the same issues that are important to me. And I know how important Black voters are to the future of our party and to our state. We all know had it not been for Black voters coming out in Georgia, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, we'd be living in a much different country today. And I, for one, will never forget that. So I was pleased to accept the invitation to come on here from Ms. Claytor. Even though she's been quite strong in her public support for my opponent, I wanted to be here anyway because of these issues and because this isn't about me, it's not about anybody else, it's about the issues. So, and it's about making sure our party, the Democratic Party, is all inclusive, hears all voices. We support and fight for those who've always supported and fought for us. First, a little bit about me. I've been elected 4 times to represent a district with a large African-American community. And I understand the importance and responsibility that comes with that role. So since my first day in office, I've prioritized issues like fighting for criminal justice reform, reentry issues, access to healthcare, public education, and civil rights. And I'm proud to have already earned the support from some of our new committee members that I see on here: Marcus Wilkes, Adam Stark, some of the committee members who've been here for a while, like Tina Russell and Ivan Lee, and our soon-to-be Madam Vice Chair, Delegate Danielle Walker. And I'm all friendships and relationships that I've built over the years. Folks on here, I just want to continue to have your support, and I hope to earn your support this evening. Thank you.
Okay, Rick.
Hi. Well, first, thanks for having me here tonight. And it's appropriate to have this forum today because today is Loving Day. It's the anniversary of the landmark decision in Loving versus Virginia, where the Supreme Court legalized interracial marriage, which led to a host of other rights for disaffected communities, ethnicities, and minorities. So because of that decision, my daughter would not have met her husband of 17 years, and I wouldn't have the cutest grandson in the world. So congratulations to all of you. We have an opportunity to build this party and make a little bit of history on our own next Saturday. Not near as much as in the Loving case, but we can elect a chair who can devote himself full-time to the work of the committee. And we are in the kind of straits where we need to hit the ground running, not only for November, but beyond. And so to answer your question, my goal as chair would be to hit the ground running, beginning right after next Saturday, to make sure that our candidates have the support that they need from the local party to the state party, the resources and communications that they need, the training that they need, and anything else that will help them to get elected. As part of that, I'm willing to go anywhere around the state and help you knock on doors, make phone calls, or answer questions and try to help get the word out that we need to elect Democrats up and down the ballot.
Okay, Kathy, you want to ask the next question?
Sure, I will. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Great, okay. The 2020 election resulted in a Republican supermajority in the West Virginia legislature. In brief, what do you attribute the Democratic losses to, and what could the state Dem party have done better? And we'll go in the reverse order this time. Mr. Staten.
In part, we were swept up, I think, by the Trump phenomenon. But one place where I think that we have missed out has been in messaging. And I think we need to do a better job to respond to messages that are given, especially national narratives that don't play here in West Virginia. And we know from experience that those responses have to be quick and they have to flood the state. We can't just answer something with a letter to the Gazette or the Huntington newspaper. We have to flood the state with that information. So, for example, when in the last election, they said defund the police, our answer should be that this Republican legislature has proposed a constitutional amendment that will take money away from county governments, which will lay off police officers. That's defunding the police. And when they talk about things like the border crisis we have is right here in West Virginia, where our best and brightest people are leaving the state to find better opportunities and inclusion in other parts of the country. And that's the answer to that question, is to change our messaging to make it fit the kitchen tables of our home and district, and to make sure that we respond quickly to anything that is charged or made by any opponent.
Mike?
Yeah, I think that 2020, unfortunately, was really the perfect storm, where we had the ticket. Unfortunately, his message, his very divisive message, has resonated very much here in West Virginia. And I think the only way for us to push back against that is really with these down ballot races. And that's why I think 22 is such a unique opportunity, having any of that, the negative effect at the top of the ticket. We need to get, like, I can't stress enough, but you need to get resources, training, fundraising training, how to read the band to our day, so they can get out and get a real message that affects real West Virginians. I'm currently in the legislature, and I know what it's serving with only 22 Democrats out of 100 in the House of Delegates. I see how this one-sided policy is coming to Virginians on the first hand, and a lot of the things that are doing are not the issues that they ran on. They didn't run on destroying public education. They didn't run on creating unlimited virtual charter schools. They didn't run on pulling money for public education to fund these unlimited virtual charter schools. But that's what they're doing. That's one of the bills that's going to have the most long-lasting effect on the future of our state. We need to get our candidates prepared to go out and talk to people one-on-one. So no matter what the mood might be towards Democrats, that we can get our candidates out there and they say, well, I'm going to vote for that person because that person's talking about access to health care. That person's talking about making sure all of our kids have the best schools to go to. That person about job safety. I think it's all about candidate training, further candidate recruitment. And as soon as November's over, we need to focus on 23. Too often our party has not talked about these off-year municipal races, and that's how you build a bench. We got to start over from the bottom up.
Okay, how do you see the West Virginia Black Caucus being involved in these ideas that you have? What do you think the role of West Virginia Black Caucus should be, Mike?
People involved. I stated in my opening remarks that it's the backbone of the Democratic Party. Had it not been for Black voters coming out in a couple of key states, said this would be a much different country now. I think the role I see of the Black Caucus and other affirmative action caucuses, really, it's about inclusion. It's about getting people together, people who haven't felt like they've been part of the decision-making process, like they the party, bringing them out, letting them know they're very much part of the party. And I remember, last summer when we had that vote about how the plans would be drafted for the affirmative action caucuses, there was pressure on me to vote a certain way. It was my first meeting of the executive committee representing the House caucus. I listened to the debate, informed myself on the issue, voted to allow the affirmative action caucuses to draft their own plan. And I believe you're seeing the result of that now when we have a more diverse elected state executive committee. That was a result of those actions we took last summer. So it was heated. It was, it was a tough debate. Through it, we need to get back together, work together, and make sure everybody has a voice in this party.
Rick?
Thank you. The short answer is we need to bring everybody to the table. And if there are representations at the table that are not there, we need to go out and find them. So if minorities or a certain type of minority is underrepresented, we need to recruit them to be part of that process that they're involved in, because we can only develop great plans and platforms if we have voices from across the party, all kinds of voices, including minority voices, female voices, older, younger, and others. So the Black Caucus's part in this is extremely important. And it's something that if I would observe, for example, that it's underrepresented, then I would go to the caucus and the people and say, make sure your people are involved and make sure that you have people who want to be involved and who will attend meetings and participate in programs and be parts of training and become candidates for office. Those are the kind of people that we need to be involved. Those people exist here in West Virginia. Most of them are right here in this room, but we need to go out and find the rest of them.
Okay, Kathy?
Okay, you guys got through that quickly. All right, next question. There seems to be a lot of division within the Democratic Party here and nationally. How do you envision bridging the divide to build a stronger coalition? And we'll start with Mr. State.
Can you repeat the last part of the cutup?
How do you envision bridging the divide to build a stronger Democratic coalition?
I have a proven record of being a consensus builder. And one of the models that I have always used is to bring all the affected parties in and have what I have always called stakeholder meetings, where all the parties involved in an issue meet together and try to work and hash something out. You know, if they can't, then there comes a time when a leader has to make a decision. But for the most part, in my experience, stakeholder groups have been the way to go and have been extremely successful. The other thing that I do is there's a saying that I learned in a leadership training once that says, seek first to understand and only then to be understood. And that says, listen to other people and what they have to say and understand what they're talking about and where they're coming from before you bring out your own views. And that's the model that I use, is to try to listen to others and understand what they're talking about and why they're saying what they're saying, and then to respond to that and use the stakeholders to teach each other those lessons of understanding between each other. And by doing that, I've been very successful at building consensus across a wide range of issues.
Thank you.
Right?
Thank you. I feel like I'm really in a unique position to bridge that divide in this party. As someone who has a very solid progressive in the House of Delegates, I have a voting record to back that up. I've also been able to work with and have respect for the folks who have been here for a while doing the work. So I couldn't be more excited. We have so many new people who put their name and all this enthusiasm. They got people to put their name on the ballot and run for executive committee. We have a very different executive committee right now. I think it's because fix the problem. They want a stronger Democratic Party because they know the people of West Virginia are going to be better served if we put more Democrats in office. And that's where we really need to keep the focus or on these elections when we're running against Republicans, because our policies, our ideas, our beliefs, what we care about is really at the core of what West Virginia, access to health care, job safety, protecting marginalized communities. What is more helpful to the people of West Virginia. So we need to focus. I would get together, work on these when we're in these races in November. And what I'd really like to see an end to is a quit battling amongst each other.
Okay. I tried to do that. I ran for state executive committee and was the second highest vote getter in Harrison County, but I lost because I couldn't have everybody from Harrison County. So how do you bridge? There seems to be a disconnect between the state executive committee and the local executive committees. How do you see bridging that gap? Mike?
I'll start. I think I'll go back to the people who have been so enthusiastic and these new folks who put their name on the ballot to run for executive committee because they want to get involved. So I think we need to harness this new enthusiasm and this new energy. And certainly in areas where we haven't had committees that have been as active, I could see us breaking down the state into like what I would call like a mini coordinated campaign broken down to senatorial districts. We have elected representatives on our state executive committee from each of the 17 senatorial districts. See those as being like super volunteers and organizers to help organize under the umbrella of that senatorial district to help coordinate the campaigns of every candidate on that senatorial district, from the Senate races on down, actually from the congressional races on down.
Rick?
The short answer to that is time. And I think that's an advantage that I bring to the position. I am willing to be a full-time chair in an unpaid position. I'm retired. I teach one college class that takes 1 hour 2 days a week, and I have a dog to feed who doesn't care what time he gets fed. So what I'm willing to do is take the time to go out into communities and meet with elected officials locally, local county officials, and others, and take staff with us and begin to make those communication and connections again, to bring the staff down to the local level for meetings, for trainings, for all of those things, to make sure that there is intercommunication from that. We also need from the state level to the local level to increase the communications that we have. And we have a lot of technological tools that are either at our disposal that we don't use very well, or that we can obtain that we could use to help in our communications with local entities. And the biggest thing I think there is time and availability. I'm able to go to Wheeling tomorrow and Martinsburg the day after.
Okay, Kathy?
All right, thank you. People often refer to a Democratic base. In your opinion, what constitutes the Democratic base here in West Virginia? And as chair, how would you be responsive to the base?
Well, our base has changed, and I think in a lot of ways we need to go back to that base and sort of have an autopsy with them as to why they have changed. Our base used to be very strongly Democratic votes in Southern West Virginia, where I'm from. We've lost a lot of that base. Those people are still registered Democratic, but they vote Republican. And I think one of the first things we do is go to the people who feel disaffected. Southern Democrats, people in the Eastern Panhandle who feel disconnected from Charleston, go to those people and say, what do you need to come home to us again? What are we missing, if anything? What do we need to be doing to answer questions that you have, to bring the issues that are important to you back to you, and take those messages to our candidates and field candidates who reflect those values?
Mike?
I think this has been the issue. Unfortunately, here in West Virginia, our base has been shrinking. So I think we need to, while first and foremost, remain true to our base and never back down from standing up for basic civil rights, which I've never done, and protecting marginalized communities and members of labor unions. And the people who've traditionally been Democrats, but that we also need to reach out to the folks who have been unfortunately swayed by the national messaging that is really, in my opinion, got people to vote against their own best interest. So we need to remind people why they were Democrat, and that's because we're the party that'll to see a doctor if you get sick. We're the party that'll make sure that if you put in the work, you'll be able to make enough to feed your family. If you're on the job environment, we're the party that makes sure that you can trust the water coming out of your tap. And that's why I think I'm in a unique position to help lead this party. I think my record speaks for itself on progressive issues that speak to our base, but also speak to just the rest of West Virginia, who would be better served by our looking out for them and not the outside corporate interests that are controlling the other side of the aisle right now.
Thank you.
Okay. Rick, you mentioned that you're an elected official. What do you think is the advantages or disadvantages of being an elected official and chairing the committee?
I'm not an elected official any longer. I'm a member of the county. I was just elected to the county executive committee. I know, and others on here, Mike, Joey, and others can confirm, when we say the legislature is a part-time legislature, that just is not correct. It's a full-time job. It's just more concentrated during the legislative session. And so because of my unique position of being retired from state government, only having the one class to teach, I think that gives me the opportunity to integrate with people around the state and to help our legislators during session. And one of my proposals is that would apply not only to the legislature, but to county governments as well, is that we develop what I call rapid response teams, who, when something big is coming up, that the leadership lets us know, and we have people around the state who are ready to call, knock on doors, and write letters to their local editors. I've had great response to that proposal from around the state, people who are ready to pick up a pen or knock on a door. And I think that kind of integration and that ability to rally those troops, if you will, is something that would be a real advantage.
Mike?
Yeah, I do currently in the legislature, and while we, it is a full-time job, I have the energy and the work ethic to work many jobs at once, and I've been doing this for a while. The work leading up to this, before I was the caucus chair, I was out helping to recruit candidates. And a lot of the folks on this call, I've received phone calls from me where I've been looking through districts and trying to find candidates to run for House of Delegates and for other offices as well. I think that there's something to be said about leading from the front. And if you look, the best press that the Democrats have gotten really in months was on this gas tax. Where did that originate from? That came from my colleagues in the legislature. We've been pushing for this gas tax holiday, and it looked like the governor was going to go with this. Republicans in the legislature pushed him back on it. That's the best messages we've had as a state party in a while, and that came from us in the legislature leading from the front. But in order to be an effective chair, and I will be a full-time delegate and I'll be a full-time chair, I will put the work in. Folks who know me know how hard I'll work. In order to do that, you also need and I think that we have to reopen our office. Right now, the office in Charleston, it hasn't been open for quite some time. And I realized that it was shut down because of COVID. But people are going back to baseball games. They're going back to concerts. People have gone back to school. We need to have an open, and we need to have a full-time staff that wants to show up and work and to get the job done and start winning elections for September.
Kathy?
Okay, gentlemen. Rick, you have been described as being a status quo type Dem, old school in thought and less progressive. Mike, many have deemed you to be more of a politician's politician and less of a public servant in recent years. Would either of you care to address these characterizations? And if so, we'll go with Rick first.
Okay. I joked with someone the other day that most of my positions have not changed over the years from the time that I was first elected to the legislature until now. But suddenly people try to characterize me, the same people who characterized me 15 years ago as being some liberal are now trying to say that I'm some super conservative. When my views on issues hasn't changed, and the values that I haven't changed. And so I think the answer to your question is demonstration, is just to show people that I am who I am and I'm always who I have been. And the second part of your question, I think, is a reminder to the people who serve on the committee and the Democrats around the state who help elect our committee members and elected officials, is that I am not the Democratic Party as the chair. I'm its voice. And when the Democratic Party makes a position on an issue, then it's my job to go out and help sell it. And that's what I would do. My opinions are maybe one of several, but they do not outweigh the opinions of any other people. And as I've told you earlier, my style is to listen. Once I listen and once we reach a consensus on an issue, then it's my job to go out and make sure that our message gets across to our voters.
Okay, Mike?
Kathy, I couldn't hear the entire question.
Okay, let me just go back and read this. Sorry. Mike, you have been deemed to be more of a politician and less of a public servant in recent years. Would you care to elaborate on these characterizations?
Well, I disagree with that. I think the folks who voted me in for, well, I'm very accessible. Anyone knows my office number is forwarded to my cell phone, and that's why when somebody calls me, they know they can get a hold of me. I see many people on this call who I've worked with in the past, whether it's Bill Harrison. I thought Dr. Smith on there who lives down the street. I'm in the community. I worked for years as a cab driver. I wouldn't think of myself as a politician's politician. I think I'm somebody that get when you're dealing with me. I think my legislative voting record really stands for itself. Only one of us can say they have a percent voting record on labor. I have a 100% labor voting record. Rick voted against labor more than he voted for labor. I have a great record on the environment. I would never have supported something like the Dirty Little Secrets bill that really was one of the things that led to the freedom industry spill here that 1/3 of the state suffered because I stand on my progressive voting record and my accessibility in the community.
Rick, would you like to rebuttal that?
Yeah, I had a significantly positive record with labor. I don't know where that rumor starts or comes from. In 1995, we reformed workers' compensation, and I was the chair of judiciary when that happened. Labor was opposed to that, and it was a huge issue for them. I will not deny that. And it became a rallying point for them in the election. I still won that election, and labor supported me, and the labor voters in my district supported me for 4 more elections after that. And what I didn't do after I won the 96 election is I didn't exclude labor from the table from any discussions. They were always available and part of stakeholder groups. And even as I was negotiating that bill, there were things that the business community thought that they could get because labor wasn't going to help pass the bill. And we told them, no, they couldn't do it.
Okay. Want to go to the chat. One of the questions is, please tell us one action step that you plan to implement to develop West Virginia's growing Black and Latino population. Mike?
I couldn't hear the question. I apologize.
Please tell us one action step that you plan to implement to develop West Virginia's growing Black and Latino population.
Well, we need to make this an attractive state for people to move to. We need to make sure that we really, and we're going to need more Democrats in office to do that. We back some of these attacks on public education. The most important thing you hear about when somebody's wanting to move to a state, and how are the schools? How are the roads? We need to put our priorities in the right place, and we need to make this a more welcoming state. I've been over the past few years seeing what the Republican parties have done and where they placed their priorities. I can't imagine. I mean, that's what keeps young people from wanting to move here. That's what keeps minorities from feeling welcome here. When they put more of an emphasis on protecting a Civil War monument than they do on protecting somebody against hair discrimination. We fought for a while trying to pass the Crown Act. Something as simple as that you can't be discriminated because of your hair. We've not been able to get that more traction trying to protect inanimate objects at the Capitol that represent a war that was fought to keep people in. We've really got to focus on issues that actually affect people and push back against all these cultural war issues that do nothing but drive people away from our state.
Rick?
Thank you. The first step we have to take is to go where they are, meet them where they are. That means we have a significant influx of Latinx populations in the Eastern Panhandle. We need to go there and meet with those people. The people in the Eastern Panhandle, including and especially the Black and Latinx populations, they fit our demographic. They should be Democratic voters. I will not cede control of the Eastern Panhandle to the Republican Party. And we stopped. The first action step that we take to get Latinx and Black voters to be more involved is to go to them, not invite them to come to us, to go to them and meet to them and see what issues are on their mind and how we can resolve those issues for them, whether it's healthcare, whether it's access, whether it's transportation. That's where we need to start those battles, is by going to those people.
Okay. Kathy?
I'm going into the chat and I see somebody has their hand up. Was that Rick Griffith? If you could put your question into the chat, that would be helpful. If you can't, somehow let us know. This question, given the 40-year lag to implement the Affirmative Action Black Caucus in West Virginia by the previous party leadership, how do you plan to move expeditiously to make up for that time?
My first.
I'm sorry, who's going first?
You can go ahead. You can go ahead, Rick. You started.
Well, I think the first thing we need to do is to gear it up and get it involved. And in a lot of ways, we need to start afresh with meetings. I know, I watched the AAC meeting as well. I know that there are some ill feelings about it and some hurt feelings about it. We need to work to get through those and beyond them, because the issues that the AAC faces and has for our state are more important that we need to focus on. And as you've mentioned, we've been behind on getting that up and running. And so what I would like to do is start fresh, hit the ground running with it, give it the resources that it needs, whether it's staff development, staffing, or anything like that. Give it the resources that it needs in order to fulfill its mission and come up with its plans.
Mike?
I'm going to tell you, I promise you this, as chair, I will simply follow the rules, and I'll need help, learn, and I will call upon other members, elected members, and appointed members of this committee to help me follow those rules. But I can tell you, last summer I was proud of the vote that I took to allow the Affirmative Action Caucuses to draft their own plan. Now, it set us back a few days, but I think the result you're seeing now, you're seeing newly elected members have created a more diverse committee. That's the first step. We need to continue working with them, because to me, it's creating, not about a vote on the executive committee. That's not what I care about. It's about bringing people into the party. It's about inclusion. It's about making people and standing up and fighting for the people who've been going out and standing up and fighting for Democrats for years. It's as simple as that. I would like to see us even expand it, where it's not just affirmative action caucuses, but also just other constituency caucuses, like other states have done with their Democratic Party, whether it's a labor caucus, an environmental caucus, a veterans caucus. It's just simply people involved, hear their voices, continue to work with them and build a party. That's what we need to do, is rebuild this party.
Okay, we've got another question in the chat. How much do you know about how much national sends to West Virginia? What percentage of our total is that with our budget? What changes would you make if you were elected?
And I think that was national money.
Yeah, national money. How much national money is sent to West? Do you have any idea how much national money is sent to West Virginia?
Well, I don't. I'm currently the vice chair of the party. I have been just since January, and I don't know the exact answer of how much we rely on from DNC money. I think that's the bulk of what we have right now to keep our office open and to keep our staff employed. I will be on the phone a lot trying to raise more money, because unfortunately it takes money to get a message out in politics. And the more money we're able to raise, the more options that we're able to have. One thing I will immediately start working on from day one is Kennedy dinner. That was one of our biggest fundraising nights of the year. It's also a way for us to honor Democrats all around the state. I think it's time to bring it back. And I think we do more grants. There's more money on the table that I think we'd be able to get. And I will work full time, making sure we have all the resources we need so we're able to win elections in November again.
Rick, do you know anything about that?
I do know some about it. I don't know the exact figures, but Mike is correct. The bulk of our funding is through the DNC for staffing, and then the money that we use for other purposes, training and other things, is money that we have to raise. And fundraising, unfortunately, has become an important role for every party or party caucus. What I think we need to do is be smart about the money that we do spend. And also we need to, as part of our messaging, you have to tell people what the money is for. If when my son was younger and he came up and asked me for $20, my first question was, why? Why do you need $20? We need to tell people why we are raising this money and what it would be for. Here in Kanawha County in February, although I wasn't a member of the committee, I was part of the call team that called Democratic voters to raise money for us to open our headquarters this spring. And we told them, we are raising money to open a headquarters. And when you give people a goal, something tangible to look at and that they can see the results of, I think you have a lot more success at raising money than just saying, we need $1,300, like we saw in a letter last week or something like that. I think you have to tie the ask to the need and to what the money will be used for.
I'm gonna try and I'm so sorry.
Just briefly, and I agree, we do need to show people what their money is being used for. And right, we have, and this is absolutely no slight to the folks that are working there now, no slight to current leadership. I consider them my friends, but we have to have an office that's open and working first and foremost. We have to create something that people feel like their money is going to something, winning elections again. We got to give people something to vote for. We got to give people something that they want to contribute.
Okay, Mike, this question is directed to you. There's been some accusations out there about you. Is there anything that you want to say concerning that?
Do you want to be more specific?
Well, the question says, will Mike address the recent accusation of psychological and emotional abuse by a woman in Charleston?
It's just, it's not true. And it really, I haven't addressed this publicly because I don't want to punch down and I don't want to really get into somebody else's personal life. But it does sadden me because it's coming from somebody who I considered a very good friend for a very long time. And the friendship ended because of what happened in early May, where Miss Beck beat a woman up pretty badly in a local Boston. As a friend, the next day, and I guess she felt like I was taking side women, and I believe victims. And there is a victim in this, and it's the woman who was beat up at the red carpet, who has a protective order against Miss Beck right now. I called her, and I hate that we have to get into personal issues and not talk about issues that affect West Virginia.
If you don't want to speak about it, you don't have to, but the question was in there,
The reason, that's fine. I would like to, and I'm addressing it. I called Miss Beck, and I expressed my concern over what happened at the red carpet. And I guess she felt like I was taking sides with the person who was beat up there, which I was. I was taking sides with the innocent victim. And so I got a text a few days later saying that she was going to, quote unquote, spill the tea on me. And I had a text earlier in December. She had done something similar and put out press releases against another delegate. She told me she was the one that put out the press releases and told me if I told anybody, she would, quote unquote, spill the tea. I could share the text message that I got here. I have a copy of the text message. I could share the screen. And it saddens me that we have to talk about this, but quite frankly, there is a victim in this, and that's the person who was beat up by Miss Beck at the red carpet.
So
I appreciate you doing that, Mike. It was a question, you know, and you addressed it head on, and I thank you for that. That was good enough for me.
Say one other thing real quick.
Sure. Go ahead.
It's really sad that this has been amplified without anybody asking me about it. It's been amplified by Ms. Clater. It's been amplified by Dayton, and it's been amplified by Seth Stern, who I see is on the call. He's made it his business to attack progressives. He's attacked me. He attacked Cody Thompson last night, reposted a picture with Delegate Thompson, one of the only openly gay man in the legislature, posted a picture with him with a rainbow headdress on, because I guess he thought that was funny. It's not funny. He's attacked Danielle Walker. He's attacked Kim Felix. He's attacked Lacey Watson. What do all the, we're all progressive Democrats. This is not the kind of party that I'm going to be the leader of. If I'm not going to put up with this sort of nonsense, we need to work together to elect Democrats, because the people of West Virginia are better served when we have more Democrats in office. It's time for us to stop attacking each other and band together and win elections in November against Republicans.
Okay. Kathy, is there another question?
Well, speaking of that, and I don't know if Rick, if you wanted to say anything with regard to that before I ask the next question, only because your name was brought up.
Yeah, Rick has allied himself with these folks. I'd like for him to condemn it or disavow himself from these people.
Well, first of all, the only thing I've said about this is that I believe women as much as I believe Anita Hill. But my second response to that is Mike has just described what a chair should not do, and that is help divide the party. In his response just now, he's called people by name, by characterizations, and things like that. You don't build a party by working that way. That's an automatic divider. Those are things that you settle either privately or by not commenting or by other methods. But you don't ever call out people personally or say demeaning things to people personally, because you lose their support. You know, President Biden was correct when he said that these things should never be personal. And when you say personalized things like that, that leads to division. And this party does not need to be divided.
Well,
one of the things we need to try to
by allowing our allies to have people who are part of the committee. We need to stand up. We need to stand up for our friends here. And I know when I'm chair, I'm not going to put up with this infighting. We're going to get it together and work together to win elections in November.
Well, I certainly appreciate you all's responses. I'm going to move on to the next question and sort of reroute this a little bit, because this goes to the point that both of you are trying to make in terms of strengthening the party. How do you plan on moving the Democratic Party here in West Virginia into the 21st century? From an election perspective, right now things are run on the old boy network as a party. So would you care to share anything about that? And Mike, will go to you first.
Well, I think we've already made a huge stride in that with the changes we've made in the Affirmative Action Caucus, which has resulted in the most diverse state executive committee that we had. I do think we need to, as soon as we get through November, and hopefully we have a good night in November where we've made positive gains in the House, where we've made positive Senate and in our county races and our municipal races, we need to move on to 23, stop ignoring municipal elections. And I think that we take a real active recruiting process. I've already talked to a tech firm that could help us in a targeted text message campaign that they focus on recruiting candidates in red districts. And I would like to, and extremely cheap to do this, to target these municipal races so we can get good candidates, diverse candidates on the ballot in these municipal races, because this is how you build a bench. When you get people in office on the municipal level, position to help people. And that's how you really, in the long term, start pushing back against the narrative that we've been up against for so long, where our party has just been demonized. We got to get people elected in these down ballot offices where they can really help people. We're not going to do that So I would like to use this new technology to recruit new candidates onto the ballot.
I think the first solution is training and education. We have done a great job in the past year of making trainings available. The advent of Zoom and YouTube and other technologies means that we don't necessarily have to have in-person trainings. And so that means that we can take them more into the local level, into counties. And so you don't have to travel to Flatwoods or Bridgeport to learn how to be a candidate or how to raise money. The second solution that I see that we have to bring the party into the 21st century involves the use of other technologies that either exist now that we don't utilize a lot. Text is one. The DNC has a text platform that we could use. I don't know if it's for sale or if they would give it to us, but there are other platforms that we could go to for messaging. One of the things that I discovered when I worked the call center for the last year's election and for raising the money for the headquarters is that a lot of people either don't have phones or they don't answer their phones if they don't recognize the number. So I think our older methods of calling are not as effective as they used to be. And so we have to find new methods to reach out and touch the voters. And some of those new methods involve things like text messaging and others, and old-fashioned mailings.
Well, I think that we've had a very good discussion tonight, and we've had a lot of questions asked and a lot of questions answered. I want to thank everyone who came out and participated in the discussion. And we're going to give each candidate, and I'm going to go with Rick first, closing remarks.
Well, again, thanks to all of you for having this forum and for, I mean, there's so many people on this call. I think that's amazing, and it's a real tribute to your interest in this campaign. I view this race as one not of at being adversarial or a difference in philosophies of views, but just a contrast in the things that we can do. As I said at the beginning, I will have one job, and that is to be the chair of the state party. Mike necessarily has several jobs, and although he says that he can do them all, my fear would be he can't do them all well. An example would be that he's the head of the House Democratic Caucus and raises money for it. Can he make 2 phone calls? Can he make 1 phone call for the House caucus and 2 days later make a phone call for the state party? I think that donor is going to say, you just called the other day. And so I have the time and can make those differentiations where he can't. And where he's a full-time legislator, I want to be able to help him, Joey, staff, and others to bring their messages out into the state. You know, this Republican Party makes them meet at 11:30 and midnight and 1 in the morning. They don't have time to get messages out or even to contact headquarters to help do that. I'm willing to help do that, not only using the technologies that we have, but also by hitting the road and by using that rapid response network that I've talked about. So my vision is that I have one job, and my job is to be the chair of the party. I will work with everybody to make sure that we build not only in numbers, but in voters. There's a large swath of independent voters out there who fit our voting demographic that we need to go get. And we need to go back to the voters that we had in Southern West Virginia in particular and other places and bring them back into the fold. And those will be the first things that I will do, and I will be able to do them full time.
Mike?
Thank you again for hosting this. Thank you, James, and thank you, Kathy, for moderating. And I want to thank everybody for joining in, and thank everybody for their enthusiasm and willingness to help us rebuild this party. And because we know the people of West Virginia are going to be much better served when there are more of us being able to make those important decisions that affect their day-to-day lives. And just to briefly answer something that was said, I can make those calls. I can call and raise money for the caucus. I can call and raise money for the party because we all have the same goal. and that's electing Democrats. And the difference is I've already been making those calls, and I have been for the past several years. I will continue to do my job, and I will do it full time. And if you want to know what kind of person I am and what kind of chair you'll get with me, I think you just look at the voting record that I've had, whether it's like from day one working on criminal justice reform, passing the Second Chance for Employment Act that we were later able to expand to full felony expungement for certain nonviolent criminals, whether it's been the prison ID bill, which helps people who are reentering society find housing and jobs, whether it's passing the Medical Cannabis Act that has helped many West Virginians with an alternative treatment and could help get people, weaning people away from dangerous addictive painkillers. Whether it's working with my colleagues like Danielle and Joey, and I see a few more that have gone on and banding together and pushing back against this supermajority and stopping the CRT bill, or the bill that would have preempted local ordinances from passing non-discrimination laws. We have a small but mighty bunch here in the House of Delegates, but we can't keep back the floodgates forever. So more than ever, it is so important for us to work together as a party for the benefit of all of us. More Democrats in seats in the Senate, in the House, in municipal races, in the county courthouses, everywhere. The people of West Virginia are better served when there are more of us in office. So we have to put all this other stuff aside and work together. Because if we're going to have any hope in advancing issues important to the Black Caucus, which are the same issues that are important to all West Virginians, if we're going to have any chance of doing that, we have to elect more Democrats. If we're going to stop these Republican efforts that they've had to roll back the hands of time on civil rights, we're going to have to elect more Democrats. And that's why I'm running for chair, because I know how hard I will work with everybody to make sure that we're picking seats up in November. This November, the next November, the November after that, we're going to continue to work together because we have to. We have to start winning elections again for everybody's sake. And I want to lead this party to be back into that direction where we can do that again and make this truly the best state to work, live, and raise a family. But thank you so much for your time tonight.
Again, Kathy, you have some closing remarks?
I do. I don't know if Marguerite can mute her phone, if that's possible. She may not be aware. It's okay. Yes, thank you all for coming out and listening to this. There were some questions in the chat that we did not get to, so I'm going to make the recommendation to our Black Caucus Chair, Mary Ann, that we make those questions available to the candidates and let them be able to answer those questions, and maybe we can put that up on the website in some capacity so you can hear those questions. I think they were important. One had to do with super delegates. One was, of course, about expanding the election, the pool of electors that we have to bring into the fold. There was another question that I'm just going to sort of nuance and say is about the value and respecting the diversity of our Indigenous caucus and accepting some of their grievances. So there are a couple of other things that I think that, bear some conversation, and I want to respect those people's questions and efforts to put that out there that we did not get to. So if that's amenable to Mary Ann, we will make sure that happens. And just want to thank everybody for their commitment tonight. And I apologize, multitasking with trying to do the time and follow the questions. So I'm going to pass it back to Mr. Griffin. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. You did an outstanding job. I want to thank Mary Clater for putting this all together. She applauds to her, kudos to her. But this just goes to show you, we had 56 people on here tonight. It goes to show what we can, as Democrats, can do if we come together. Let's bring it together. Let's do it together, and we can win back this state. I'm old enough to remember when Democrats were the thing here in West Virginia. If you didn't have that D on you behind your name, you weren't going to win. We can bring it back to that time. So again, on behalf of Mary Clater, Kathy, and myself, we'd like to thank you all for participating in this tonight, and have a good evening.
Good night.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone.